We have to have a plan B when technology doesn't work. He goes, when it doesn't work and you live in 4,000 units, you don't want 10% of that group, 400 people yelling and screaming at the board because the board failed to do something and they weren't prepared for it.
You don't want to see claims from it, that kind of a thing, and you don't want to threaten anybody's safety. You have to think about everything, really. Technology creates like a lot of new worries, a lot of concerns that have to be addressed.
HOA Insights is brought to you by 5 companies that care about board members: Association Insights and Marketplace, Association Reserves, Community Financials, Kevin Davis Insurance Services, and the Inspectors of Election. You'll find links to their website and social media in the show notes.
Hi, I'm Kevin Davis, the president of Kevin Davis Insurance Services.
And I'm Sherry Branson of Kevin Davis Insurance Services. And this is HOA Insights, where we promote common sense
for common areas. Welcome, everybody, to episode 167. I have a very fascinating conversation with Sherry and I going to have on the knowledge gap. Where we're looking at community associations right now really are just not up to par when it comes to things like cyber risk, AI, and technology today. So we're going to take a deep dive into it, and we're going to talk about it, and hopefully we can make you guys just a little bit more informed so you can make better decisions when it comes to cyber, technology, and AI. Now, Sherry, before we get started, we're going to, first of all, I have my from our swag shop. So there's an HOAinsights.org. Sherry, you still haven't gotten one yet, have you?
I still haven't gotten one. No, I keep, every time we do a podcast, Kevin, I say I'm going to contact Robert or Kathy, and I definitely will contact them, though, because I definitely want some of that swag. I love it. I think it's great.
Sure. Just log into HOAinsights.org and get whatever you want down there. We have some great stuff there for you. And if you have any questions or if you missed any of our podcasts, go to our YouTube channel. It's all there. We have a lot of great things in there for you. And if you have any questions or any great ideas or any good stories you want to share, also go to our HOAinsight.org and let us know. So, Sherry, we're going to talk about what?
Yeah, we're going to talk about, the knowledge gap, Kevin, which is really interesting because things are changing so rapidly and so quickly in the world of technology, and businesses and people are kind of scrambling to keep up, I
guess we should define what this knowledge gap is. What are we talking about? And this is what I'm saying, basically, that technology is evolving faster than the knowledge you need to require it. So we're taking into consideration understanding, oversight, managing a community association today. You have to take into consideration that it has evolved. It's not the same as it was, 5 years ago at all.
Yeah. Not at all, Kevin. Not at all. I mean, it seems like every 6 months there's something new. It's changing just so rapidly and so fast. And I don't know if any person can have the education to keep up with it at the same pace.
And that's our conversation we're going to have today, you and I are going to have today, is that what are we worried about? What are the 5 things that if you are a community association board member and we talk about this knowledge gap, what are they and what is important right now? Now, the key thing to this knowledge gap, though, is to understand that there are criminals out there who are looking at community associations. And they're knowing that they have a reserve money there, that they have operating income, and they know that people like you, Sherry, lives in the community association, but they all live in community associations and they want your data.
Absolutely, Kevin. Yeah, the associations, the property managers, they're holding on to everybody's personal data, their addresses, their phone numbers, their email addresses, their social security numbers, their checking accounts, if they're paying their HOA dues online. The property managers, and then the association, which is all volunteer board members, they're holding on to a lot of valuable information that hackers want.
And what is interesting, because they used to want only the money and the data, but now they want access. And what they use is malware out there to get access. Number one is spyware. Spyware is what they all love to have because they sit in our computer and they're watching everything I'm doing right now. They're watching everything you're doing right now and waiting for you to go to the bank and just waiting there. The amount of malware that's out there that these hackers can go into, it is just unbelievable. And again, it goes back to, we're talking about nonprofit volunteers who lack that knowledge and experience when it comes to cyber, AI, and technology today.
And, Kevin, as you mentioned earlier, a little while ago, every company, every person, and community associations, including the board members and the property managers, are using technology for everything now, for everything.
Let's start there. We're going to talk about 5 areas that's going to be a really big concern. That's something we talk about the knowledge gap, it's pretty clear. So number 1, social engineering. Social engineering is the way cyber criminals get into your computer. And it's the easiest way for them to get into your computer.
Absolutely. Yeah, email, they can do it through email. Even you had it happen through social media. It can happen through social media. I mean, it can happen in so many different ways. And basically, that's manipulating people where they come up with fake emails that look like real emails from a vendor or from a board member, maybe, or the treasurer of an association, asking them to cut a check. When I attended a trade show in Florida years back, a treasurer told me that she had received a fraudulent email asking her to cut a $10,000 check. So she picked up the phone and she called the person who had sent it to her, and she said it looked legitimate, So people can be manipulated, but luckily she caught it. She made a phone call.
And Sherry, AI has made this thing so much easier because they are just gotten so smart and so better at crafting these emails, having my voice recognition there, and even visually looking like me, so that it's so much easier to trick people into giving people what they want. And that's all social engineering is tricking you into giving me what I want from your system. It could be a passcode. It can be your information, your routing number, your bank number. And that we see it. I would say, I remember the first claim that we've ever seen from social engineering is where that the landscaper was hacked. And the landscaper was hacked. All his emails went out to all of his clients. And they said, please pay now to avoid late fees. Here's my new bank and routing number.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, they can hack the vendor that you're working with and compromise their email. And like you said, it looked like a real email, and, it just goes from there. And, there was a situation in Oklahoma where the owner of a property management company started getting text messages, but they were, it was social engineering text messages. And it ended up resulting in a $3 million loss to the HOA accounts, the reserve accounts, because she managed quite a few HOAs in Oklahoma. They're coming up with ingenious different ways to get people, and they just make it look real, and you're caught off guard. If you don't double check, then it's too late.
And one thing is that you can do to avoid it, and that is when you get an email, first of all, it says new bank and routing number, forget it, because we don't change bank and routing numbers. But if you have any suspicion, just pick up the phone and call the vendor up. Now, don't call the number that's on the letter. Call their direct line and say, wait a minute, I got an invoice from you for X number of dollars. I don't understand. We paid you already, because what you want to do is avoid a situation in the future where you actually pay the fictitious person and then the landscaper is still looking for his money. That's number 1, that's social engineering. Now, number 2, and it's my favorite one, is technology dependency. We have gotten to a point where we have really depended on technology. And I'm going to give you a point from me personally. And I love this story. So when I leave work, in the afternoon, I go to my car. And guess what? I don't need my key anymore. As close as I get to my car, my phone says, it's Kevin, close to the car. Boom. It comes on, it lights up, mirrors go out. I get inside the car, push the button, start the car. And that's on my way home. Now I get halfway home, I look at it and go, wait a minute, it's 90 degrees outside. So I want to be able to cool my house down. So I go to my phone and tell the app in my phone to lower the air conditioning just a little bit so when I get home, it'll be nice and cool. As I get close to home, pull into the driveway, there's the Ring camera right there. It rings, and guess what? It notifies my wife where she's at the store or whatever, that somebody's coming in there. It's me, and she doesn't panic because I'm coming home. And it's great. I got the car. My phone unlocks my front door. I walk in, turns on my lights, and guess what? I'm ready for the evening. I check my mail, not my regular mail from the post office, but my emails. I go to my banking. I communicate. That's what happens now. I'm depending on all that technology today. That technology makes a difference in my life. Now, if one of those things go wrong, if I come in and my garage doesn't open or that security camera is not working or a lock doesn't work, I'm not a happy guy. I'm upset. Now,
No,
just imagine, Sherry, that all of a sudden, how many units you live in your homeowner association?
it's large. It's probably, I think, about 4,000 homes.
Yeah. Now, can you imagine? Okay. I just list a whole bunch of things there that I'm dependent on from a technological point of view. Now, could you imagine in your association if these things stop working correctly? If your security system broke down, or you can't get into the lot, you can't get into the pool, or you can't get into that front gate,
We had a situation a couple of years ago where the gates weren't working, the key cards, like the whole system went down, the security system. So that did happen, and everybody was, freaking out about it. So, yeah, if all of a sudden one thing goes wrong, people panic. You know what I mean? They get nervous. It could be something from just fixing the gates. That's something that can be fixed. But, what if somebody got locked in and couldn't get out, or, that kind of a thing? I mean, there's situations that could happen that could cause an association to get claims that they never thought they could get.
But our dependency is because of our convenience. Don't forget, the reason why this dependency is so important to me and to you and everybody else, because it's convenient. But the convenience is at what cost? Our convenience sometimes is that we lose perspective. Like, for example, I went to fly into LAX recently, and the escalator's not working. And it's a group of people standing there wondering what to do now. The escalator's not working. Now, there's stairs right next to it, but people looking and start talking to each other and wondering, we're used to convenience. And that convenience, it just creates that dynamic there where all of a sudden, because of, that convenience, we don't know what to do. We lost track of the things that have really made a difference.
Yeah, we get so, I think the faster, the more technological advances that happen and the more accustomed you get to using it, when it's taken away, you're just kind of in shock. The face recognition thing for apps, like I use it on a lot of my apps. And if it doesn't work, I'm like, oh no, now I have to remember the password. Well, I haven't used the password in like 6 months. You know what I mean? Now I gotta look up the password. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but it happens to me a lot where for some reason face recognition will work and then it doesn't work, so I don't. Yeah.
But that's the whole point, is that we get to a point we depend on it so much that now all of a sudden we want to hold that board responsible for something that's not working correctly. So instead of being sued or I made a claim against you, board of directors, just have a backup plan. Just understand that, guess what? Technology isn't perfect. There are situations where, guess what? You may be locked out of your system. You may be locked out of your system because there's a ransomware attack on you. So have a plan, have a backup plan, have a kind of plan that says, guess what? We're prepared for these things to happen, and you're notifying the people who live in the community. If these things happen, this is what we do. Have a plan. So the first one we talked about, social engineering. Second one is that we depend on technology so much that we take everything for granted because it's convenient and fast. But we have to have a plan B when technology doesn't work. Because when it doesn't work and you live in 4,000 units, you don't want 10% of that group, 400 people yelling and screaming at the board because the board failed to do something and they weren't prepared for it.
Exactly. You don't want it to be a crisis or a giant emergency. You want to make sure that you're prepared. You don't want to see claims from it, that kind of a thing. And you don't want to threaten anybody's safety. And of course, their information, you don't want their information stolen, that kind of a thing. So yeah, you have to think about everything, really. Technology creates like a lot of new worries, a lot of concerns that have to be addressed.
So let's go to the next one here. The next one is smart buildings. We just talked about, but basically we're talking about the Internet of Things, IoT. IoT is a hot new word that everybody is either ignoring, but it is the future. The Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is this. Is that there are things that work by the internet, like the things I just mentioned, the door locking, the heating, the air conditioning come on, maybe an elevator, and things. So you have the internet and things. So that's what it goes together, and they communicate with each other. And they communicate and come up with different information in terms of how is it working, is it not working, accuracy, all these different things. So when you talk about the Internet of Things, it's really important because that is the future. That is now. When I go to my car and my door opens up, it is the internet with things, with stuff. And that's Very, very important. Now, there are 3 things to be concerned about with the Internet of Things. Number 1, they don't update things. They update your phones, they update your internet, they update everything. But when it comes to things, when they talk about the locks, when they talk about the air conditioning, when they talk about the elevator, when they talk about all the things that the internet is running through the cloud or whatever it is, those things don't get updated. So by not getting updated, those patches and stuff that you get on your phone, when you find out that, my phone is not really working the way it should, and then you update it, but the things don't get updated. So that's number 1. Number 2 is they have the original factory settings there. Okay. That means if they have a password, it's welcome123 or just welcome, or the name of it is the factory setting that's there, and we don't change them. The attackers out there know what the factory settings are. So again, what they're doing is going after the things, and those things can get into your system, especially in community associations, because community associations usually have one server connected to all the things.
Mm-hmm. So they're more vulnerable.
Definitely more vulnerable. Most corporations will have a server for the things and a server for the internet, and maybe a separate server for all their financial information. But right now, the community associations may only have one server for all of it.
That's a big problem.
And at the original factory setting. And that includes the router that they have, including all the information they have. They never changed it.
That's scary. That is pretty scary. Yeah. It's just, they're just not aware of all of the risks, and the hackers are going to go after the most vulnerable entrance point. And if the things are not updated, they know that, they haven't been updated, then that's how they're going to get in there. That's what they're going to do.
And the third thing is privacy settings, because they collect data. They collect data, the internet and the things, the data goes back and forth. Now, if you don't update your privacy settings, guess what happens?
Yeah, your data gets stolen.
But you don't know. We have no idea. You can go into your privacy settings and says, I want to make this available only for me, or whatever the right privacy setting. And guess what? You don't have that problem anymore. But what we do is that we ignore it. And because we ignore it, we end up getting into the trouble. Because again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a gap in knowledge.
Right.
A gap in knowledge that has to be fixed to avoid any kind of claim against that board of directors in the future because of a loss or because of just an accident. Just because the mistake was made. I mean, look, I know I flipped the light switch on, the light comes on. If that light doesn't come on, I have no idea why it's not coming on. I have not. I can change the light bulb, but we just don't know. Now, that's okay for me not knowing, but if you live in a 4,000 unit homeowner association, that's not good enough for saying, I don't know why it's not working.
Right. Yeah, the board members have to know. They have to either stay on top of it themselves or have an expert to refer to make sure that they have all the answers. You know what I mean? When a big problem happens, they don't want to just be caught saying, I don't know. Now, after the fact, after the situation happens, when there's a problem, you want to make sure the experts are there to help you in the beginning, or you have the proper training. But, technology, most board members are not IT experts. You know what I mean? It's not their job to handle an entire IT department. So I think having a cyber expert and IT expert is a great way to go.
Exactly. And at least somebody on call that you can call. And the problem with associations is because they are volunteers, and when they have board of directors meetings, their priorities is what's happening on Netflix instead of worrying about your budget and your assessments and enforcement, but you worry about other things. But one thing you have to add to that list of things you have to worry about is cyber risks, AI, technology. It has to be done.
Yeah, it has to be done, especially in these smart communities and smart buildings and everything being controlled by technology now. You have to have somebody on call.
All right, it's time for a break. We'll take a quick break and come back. We got 2 more, and we'll review the 3 that we've talked about, go to the 2 more, and talk about a little bit about insurance, but not too much, because I don't want to make, it's not about insurance. It's about, this gap in knowledge. So let's take a quick break. Hi, I'm Kevin Davis, the president of Kevin Davis Insurance Services. Our experienced team of underwriters will help you when you get that declination. We provide the voice of reason, someone who will stand by you. Our underwriters bring years of knowledge to our clients that can't be automated by technology or driven by price. As a proud Anwins company, we bring true value to your community association clients. We are your community association insurance experts. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. And let's talk about where we've been. Number one, social engineering. People trying to pretend they're somebody or not to go after your money, your data, access into your system. The second thing is dependency on technology. We've gotten used to the things that matter to us that makes our lives convenient. When they're not convenient, whose fault is it? We want to blame the board. We want to blame the vendor. We're going to blame somebody, but we're not going to take responsibility for it anymore because we expect it. We expect life to be a certain way. The third one is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is the third one. And we have to be worried about that. They don't update the things itself. There's at the original settings. So that passwords, the welcome 123, whatever it is there, still there. And the privacy settings have to be dealt with. So that's the first three. So now where we're at, the next one is data privacy. Now, data privacy has evolved over the years. Before, the data privacy was your name, social security number, your name, driver's license number, your name, and something that was a personal identifiable information that identifies you specifically, but something that is supposed to be protected by law. Okay. So that's the way it has been for years. It has been your job as a board member is to make sure that data is protected. Now, something new is happening is biometrics. Because now, facial recognition is there. And the question is, do you have the right to keep that facial recognition data?
Right. Yeah, I know that Illinois, I believe, Kevin, currently have
a biometric law out there that says you can't store that information.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. Just like when you go to the airport, you see them say in there that they don't keep it. They take the picture right there and boom, they go and they don't keep that information. It disappears. Wait a minute, that's what they say disappears.
Yeah, we don't know if they're really keeping it or not, do we?
Yes, but at least they recognize the fact that they have to let us know that it's not there because, there are privacy concerns. So what has happened over the years, again, these things have changed. So all of a sudden you have a new, a security system that keeps track of people's bio information. Maybe against the law to do that, and even if it is or it's not against the law, I, maybe in unit number 16, don't want you to keep that information. And I'm willing to go to a judge to have you make sure you don't keep it.
Right. The association might make the decision to let's start using biometric face recognition at the pool or the clubhouse to get in and out, not realizing that could open up a whole can of worms down the road if there's no laws in that particular state, regarding biometrics, and some homeowner decides they're upset that they're holding onto their facial, their picture, their photo.
So what happened again is that it had evolved, 2 or 3 years ago, or for the past however many years. When you talk about data privacy, it is your data, which is your name, social security number, your name, and your banking information, your name and driver's license number. It has evolved into your name, your biometric, what you look like, who you are. Because you can imagine if the information gets out and all of a sudden how many AI created people you can create from just that facial recognition.
Absolutely. Yeah. AI, they're just taking pictures of people or videos of people and turning them into AI models or whatever you call them, and like clones, really like AI clones of people. So, yeah.
All right. So the next one, and this is the one that it's made a big difference, and I call it vendor integration. A community association has more vendors coming in and out of that place than ever before. And you're talking about financial people, you're talking about contractors, you're talking about maintenance people, insurance professionals, lawyers, reserve study specialists. They come in and out of there. Okay. Now, what happened in the past, they'd knock on your door or they'd knock at the gate and they come in. But now everything's done electronically, where you never see these people and all you notice is electronic things occurring. They're in the cloud. It's all cloud-based. And what happens is that there's so much data going in and out. And again, as a board of directors, where you used to worry about, collecting assessments and enforcing rules and maintaining it. Now you have an infrastructure there based on vendors, the ecosystem based on them. And you have to decide on how valuable, what's happening out there with all these different people. You trust your vendors, but do you verify?
Yeah. I mean, you trust your vendors, but they have their own email system, their own invoice system, you know what I mean? So they could be vulnerable to being hacked, just like the landscapers we talked about earlier, that they were hacked, their email was hacked, So you might have a great system in place, a robust cyber protection system, but you don't know about your vendors, and you are integrated.
And the problem is that these vendors may have access to your system. They may have remote access to your system also.
Right.
Like the management company may have it. But you also have other vendors that may have it also, that they have access to your system and getting information back and forth to you. And again, all it takes is somebody to hack, Somebody, the interesting thing that I love when I found out about hacking is when I go to the airport and they have open Wi-Fi. Well, open Wi-Fi is really open to everybody. So if I'm sitting there, putting information in the system, there's somebody in the airport looking at the same thing that I'm doing and is waiting for me to use my bank. So this open Wi-Fi is not a good thing.
No, it's an invitation
But again,
to hackers, really.
Invitation to hackers. There's so much information that goes back and forth between the vendors and the board of directors that's easy for somebody to come in there and do it. And here's the problem. When there's something that does happen, when there's a data breach, or somebody comes in and says, we're going to hold your system for ransom, who is responsible?
That's $1 million question, Kevin, because there's a lot of gray areas and a lot of crossover between the vendors, the property manager, and the association.
Yes.
All three.
Yeah. Yep. And you can blame the property manager. The property manager said, well, it wasn't us because guess what? You were hacked, but none of the other 30 associations were hacked that we manage. You can say the landscaper. The landscaper says, well, no, it wasn't us. Or you can say, guess what? It was us, but we don't have any insurance. We don't have anything. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So there's so many problems in there, so many different ways. So my recommendation is this. If you ever get stuck in a situation like that, then by law, I would say it's our responsibility as the board members of the community association. It is our responsibility. We'll take it. And then what you do is you go to the vendor and find out, wait a minute, is it really ours or did you do something wrong? Were you ultimately responsible? Now, if they say you're responsible, then they can take over. But in the meantime, there's things have to be done. You have to have notifications. You have to do a forensic examination because it may take a while for that board of directors to go after the management company or go after the landscaper, whoever it is that did these things. So, again, be careful.
Yes. Make sure that the association at least is covered with insurance coverage, with expert advice, expert cyber advice. So if anything does occur and there's gray areas between the vendor, the property management company, or somebody else, then at least your ducks are in a row. You know what I mean? You've got yourself covered.
Yep. And that's why it's important when we're talking about this. We're talking about understanding a couple things. You understand that you have a fiduciary responsibility to understand what you are doing. So you cannot have your head in the sand anymore and say, well, there's cyber stuff out there, but guess what? We assume that's going to be okay. We assume it's going to be all right. So that's the number one thing. You have a fiduciary responsibility, have oversight of what's going on. Hopefully everything will be okay because it was yesterday. Technology is changing rapidly, faster than you know. You want to be able to defend yourself. And the only way you can defend yourself by saying, we're taking this seriously. And we know we have a fiduciary responsibility. And these are the things we're going to do. We have oversight of everything. That's number one. Number two is what happened if one of our technology situations that we see all the time doesn't work? What do we do? Do we have a backup plan? Do we have a plan B? Do we have it in writing? What does our contract says? So we have to be aware of, what would happen if there was an attack on our system on purpose or by accident. What do we do?
Yeah.
So we should have a manual.
Right.
We should have a procedure We should have something. We have a manual. We have procedures right now that tell us how to maintain the building, right? We have a manual that tells us how we're going to act with the management company and the landscaper. But we left cyber totally off of it. We do not talk about cyber at all in the contracts.
No, not at all. Not at all. People just kind of, until it happens, they don't think, they don't plan. They're just not really worried about it yet, which is not good, because there's just larger and larger claims happening. And with, like you said, with everybody based so much on technology, everything, financial transactions, large financial transactions, all the reserve accounts are paid online now. Payments are paid online. With everything so reliant on technology, you have to have a plan.
And that brings up the third one. If you do have a problem, if you have a breach of any kind, you got to know who is responsible. Now, I said up front, take responsibility for it, because it makes your life a little bit easier. But have some kind of contract that says that, guess what? If it happens on your watch, it's your responsibility. Because it's not in the contract. The management company can say, well, guess what? Your job is to reimburse us for loss, indemnify us in case of a loss. So put it in the contract, because without a contract, you will be held responsible for it anyway. So just make sure you know who is going to be responsible for these things.
So you really have to get your attorney involved, I would say, Kevin, don't you think? The attorney and the cyber experts.
Mm-hmm. This is the part the commercial part. Have an insurance professional come out and talk to you about cyber insurance.
Yes, to understand what's covered, what's not covered, why you need it, that kind of a thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And cyber insurance will cover the lawsuits that we're talking about when you're sued because you failed to supervise, failed to keep track of the money, failed to anything, the word failure. So you need liability. You need that first party coverage for the notifications and all those expenses. You need crime insurance to protect you from social engineering situations. So, just talk to your insurance professional and say, I need help on cyber. I just heard this podcast that there's a gap in knowledge. And I agree, we have knowledge. We don't have the knowledge, but if we have the insurance, it can help us not have the knowledge. You don't have a defensible position. A lack of knowledge when you're sued is not a defensible position.
Right.
But having insurance, listening to the podcast and keeping notes is something you can defend yourself with. So when that claim comes in, you go to court and say, guess what? I know more than the person next door, than the association next door. Okay. So this is what we've done. And guess what? At the end of the day, be less likely to have a large judgment or settlement made against you that may or may not be covered by insurance. So how do you like that as a closing message?
Oh, it's great, Kevin. Great. Really fantastic information, so valuable. And it's really going to help a lot of people, a lot of board members and property managers, understand kind of what's going on out there in the cyber world, you know what I mean? And why an association, just like any other business on the planet, really needs cyber protection, because there's just so much going on related to cyber hacking and ransomware and social engineering, and et cetera. And associations are handling lots and lots of money.
Yeah.
So I think that you gave is excellent advice, great advice, and a great resource and tool. And I think it makes people think a lot.
Well, listen, Sherry, it's great having you on a podcast again. Again, I keep saying we do it more often, but we do it more often. So it's great.
We do. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. And thanks a lot, everybody. And we'll see you next week for another truly great podcast. I'm looking forward to it. I love listening to these things every week. Glad I learned a lot too. So, all right. Thanks a lot, and take care.
You've been listening to HOA Insights, Common Sense for Common Areas. You can listen to the show on our podcast website, hoainsights.org, or subscribe on any of the most popular podcast platforms. You can also watch the show on our YouTube channel. Check the show notes for helpful links. If you like the show and want to support the work we do, you can do so in a number of ways. The most important thing you can do is engage in the conversation. Leave a question in the comments section on our YouTube video. You can also email your questions or voice memos to podcast@hoainsights.org or leave us a voicemail at 805-203-3130. If you gain any insights from the show, please do us a huge favor by sharing the show with other board members you know. You can also support us by supporting the brands that sponsor this program. Please remember that the views and opinions expressed by the podcast do not constitute legal advice. You'll want to consult your own legal counsel before making any important decisions. Finally, this podcast was expertly mixed and mastered by Stokelight Video and Marketing. With Stokelight on your team, you'll reach more customers with marketing expertise that inspires action. See the show notes to connect with Stokelight.